If you're now an American citizen living in Florida that wants to travel, they're going to put some form of restriction in your way. I mean, it's clearly unconstitutional. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country.
The pandemic has resulted in previously unimaginable restrictions on individual liberty.
Justice Samuel Alito criticizing a SCOTUS ruling pausing the deportation of Venezuelan men. Alito says that the court behaved hastily and prematurely.
How do you have the authority to order something that so clearly contravenes the Bill of Rights of the United States, the U.S. Constitution? I am for due process specifically for me. I'm not that concerned whether someone who broke my law to get into my country and is taking welfare from my pocket gets due process.
How much more corrupt can Donald Trump get? Unfortunately, that is the question we wake up asking ourselves every single day. And it's not just how corrupt can he be, but how publicly corrupt can he be? Because Donald Trump is more than happy to show off how willing he is to take bribes and cut deals for those who will serve him. And that is exactly what he just did in an incredibly blatant display of his corruption caught on video that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we get into the call Donald Trump made that was caught on camera showing his corruption, I want to start with some context from Senator Chris Murphy on the corruption Donald Trump seems to love the most lately, and that's pardons.
I mean, let's really talk about who he let out of prison this week, who walked out of prison, people who were beating police officers over the head with poles. He let out of jail someone who said when he arrived in Washington that day, there will be blood. Welcome to the revolution. These weren't tourists. These weren't people that just got accidentally pushed into the Capitol. These were people who came to Washington with the explicit purpose of beating the hell out of police officers and killing Democratic members of Congress. And so what happened this week is that political violence just got legitimized in this country. And you were going to see it again and again and again, specifically directed towards Democrats, because Donald Trump has said, if you beat up a police officer to further my political agenda, if you terrorize Democrats, I will let you off the hook. We have never, ever in the 240-year history of this country seen anything like this. Our country is fundamentally different today than it was before these pardons are issued. I'm glad these judges are speaking up, but I hope that every single one of my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, stands up and explains what has happened here, that our lives have been put in jeopardy. Our democracy has been put in jeopardy by what Donald Trump did with 1,500 pardons, including pardons for the most vicious, the most violent, the most out of control. One of the guys he let out of prison this week, who walked out of prison on Monday, literally had to be pulled off of police officers by other rioters. He was so vicious and enraged that day. That guy got let out of jail this week, and that's inexcusable.
Nothing more clearly demonstrates the hypocrisy of MAGA, really, than these pardons, a movement that claims it backs the blue, but when Donald Trump hands out pardons to 1,500 cop beating insurrectionists, they don't seem to care. And on the topic of pardons, of course, Donald Trump has been losing his mind over this fake Joe Biden auto pin scandal. You can't even call it that yet. When it comes to his own pardons, it's very clear he doesn't know what he's talking about or who he is pardoning. And that was revealed in this video of a call that we are going to check out with Donald Trump. But before we do, I need to take a look at his latest auto pin freakout. Trump wrote, other than the rigged presidential election of 2020, the biggest scandal in American history is the auto pin. Whoever used it was usurping the power of the presidency. And it should be very easy to find out who that person or persons is. They did things that a Joe Biden of sound mind would have never done, like open borders, transgender for everyone. Men and women's sports, and far more fear. Not, however, we will bring America back bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. So what Donald Trump is referring to is the pardons that Joe Biden signed with AutoPen, even though Donald Trump has done the same multiple times in this presidency and in the last. But of course, MAGA doesn't care about this hypocrisy. And neither do the MAGA celebrities who Donald Trump just pardoned, yes. In the latest scandal around Donald Trump's pardon, we saw him caught on video talking to one of the MAGA celebrities that he just pardoned. And before we see that, I want to see what she most recently said at the RNC that helped her family get out of trouble.
Look at what they've done to Steve Bannon. I mean, the man should be at home. Proverbs 24:16 says, "For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. But the wicked stumble when calamity strikes." It's about time we start seeing people stumble. We need to rise above the persecution. We need to hold rogue prosecutors accountable. There should be no immunity. We need to expose the Democrats' corruption, and better yet, the Biden family's corruption.
I wanted to play that clip because this MAGA celebrity, this Trump yard, Savannah Chrisley, says that we have to do away with the crooks. We have to do away with the EMU immunity. We have to expose the corruption really well. Let's take a look at some of the corruption existing within our own family. Trump to pardon reality. TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley convicted of tax fraud and evasion. Donald Trump said Tuesday that he will pardon reality television stars Todd and Julie Chrisley, who are convicted of tax evasion and bank fraud and sentenced to several years. It's a terrible thing, but it's a great thing because your parents are going to be free and clean, Trump said on a phone call with the couple's daughter, Savannah Chrisley, that we can see right here.
That's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, but it's a great thing because your parents are going to be free and clean, and I hope we can do it by tomorrow. Is that okay? We'll try getting it done tomorrow. So
wonderful.
Give them, I don't know them, but give them my regards and wish them a good life.
Mr. President.
Yes. How are you?
I just want to say thank you for bringing my parents back.
Yeah, well, they were given a pretty harsh treatment based on what I'm hearing. Pretty harsh treatment.
Yes, sir.
Was your brother fighting also for this release, right?
Hey, I go to the University of Alabama, and I saw you speak, and I said, that's the greatest presidential speech I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, that's good. I was just there. I gave the commencement. What a great group of people. If you were in the audience, you have to be good. What a good school it was, and I love Alabama. You know, I love Alabama. It's that school is really, that was very impressive when I was there. Yeah, I think I did a good job. I got a lot of good comments on that one, so that's good. I love doing that with great young people.
Kicked out of class.
Yeah, he got kicked out of class for defending you. It was pretty interesting.
Gee, I'm surprised because University of Alabama, if we took a vote, I'd get 90% of the vote, right?
Sure would.
Exactly.
Maybe more, actually. But anyway, well, you keep fighting. Congratulate your parents.
Congratulations, Savannah.
And Alice had a lot to do with this. And just congratulate your parents. And I hear they're terrific people. This should not have happened. So, and you
Thank
just
you so
take
much.
care. Boy, they have good children. You're no longer children, but I'll say it anyway. They have good children, don't they? Huh?
Trump has granted a number of high-profile, controversial pardons since returning to the White House, including for individuals convicting of white-collar crimes. Todd and Julie Chrisley, known for their series Chrisley Knows Best, were found guilty in 2022 for conspiring to defraud Atlanta area community banks to get more than $36 million in personal loans, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Northern District of Georgia. They also conspired to defraud the Internal Revenue Service, per the attorney's office. Todd Chrisley was sentenced to 12 years in prison, and Julie Chrisley was sentenced to 7 years. Savannah Chrisley, a reality television star, had been lobbying for a pardon for her parents, telling people in February that she is going through the proper channels. She had lunch at the White House in February. According to a post on Instagram, she also spoke at the Republican National Convention last year when she criticized the prosecutors who brought her parents' case. So, of course, Donald Trump is just doing favors at this point for anyone willing to heap praise on him. But why that video is so important to all the hypocrisy Of course, we saw the MAGA TV star daughter Savannah talking about how we have to root out the corruption, and then she's in with Trump. But Trump clearly didn't know who these people were. He didn't really seem to care at all. He started talking about how many votes he would win at the University of Alabama, clearly distracted with his own narcissism. The same guy again who was saying that Joe Biden's auto pen, saying that Joe Biden didn't know who he was signing pardons for, blatantly not true, was the biggest crime in American history, but he actually does not know, and it doesn't seem to raise any questions. But this is no surprise. This is just one of the many MAGA flip-flops. These people don't care about the rule of law. And that is exactly what Ari Melber was calling out in some great recent reporting tonight. And I want to take a look.
A mistake as policy and legally, well, again, in the moment you can say it was lawful in the sense that some bad things are lawful at the time, but it is not a precedent that any serious mainstream figure in law or military expertise has pointed to for support in a long time. Reagan even established a Civil Liberties Act, which acknowledged what he called that mistake and injustice. Now, Trump's Solicitor General John Sauer actually brought this up during his confirmation hearing in agreement with the idea that it was a mistake.
I believe there was a court order there that upheld, which has now been, I think, correctly repudiated by virtually everyone, a court order that upheld the internment of Japanese civilians in internment camps during.
As bad as it was, that court order was followed for years, was it not?
And I just wonder whether some historians might think we'd be better off if it hadn't been followed.
He wonders, in that example, if that abuse of government detention powers should have not been followed. This is why they call it clever lawyering, because he works for an administration that has gone farther, not as far as Korematsu, nobody's saying that, but has gone farther than other administrations to stretch wartime detention powers, claiming a war right now, and then he's citing that in the opposite. Now, Trump wants to deport more people, and there are many ways he can do that that are constitutional. But he's also sending out lawyers to push the courts past the very lines they draw. And there's some very clear hypocrisy on the record. Take the pandemic we all lived through. Just 5 years back, it was many conservative Republicans who looked at COVID restrictions, which did, of course, restrict Americans and other individuals' liberty to some degree temporarily. And they, at the time, made the very arguments that they now resist against far graver due process violations on behalf of Trump's deportation agenda.
If you're now an American citizen living in Florida that wants to travel, they're going to put some form of restriction in your way. I mean, it's clearly unconstitutional. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country.
The pandemic has resulted in previously unimaginable restrictions on individual liberty.
Justice Samuel Alito criticizing a SCOTUS ruling pausing the deportation of Venezuelan men. Alito says that the court behaved hastily and prematurely.
How do you have the authority to order something that so clearly contravenes the Bill of Rights of the United States, the U.S. Constitution? I am for due process specifically for me. I'm not that concerned whether someone who broke my law to get into my country and is taking welfare from my pocket gets due process.
Due process for, quote, me, not for them or you. But that's the whole point. Remember, due process attaches regardless of what someone's accused of, because that's the whole point. And there are people who've been convicted of terrible things, all the way up including murder, who under our system are entitled to due process. And murderers, whatever their nationality, obviously by the end of the process, you feel a lot of judgment of them. But they get the due process along the way. And a lot of reasonable people would say a murderer is worse than an unlawful migrant, even if both broke different rules. So there you have the conservatives who are on record quite recently in a real-world example.
Of course, MAGA doesn't actually care about any of the values they claim to hold. Of course, they are willing to flip-flop on anything. This is a cult around Donald Trump. A cult that we are going to continue to call out on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.